Why FarmLink? Why is a program like FarmLink needed and finding land? So in 2017, a survey done by National Young Farmers Coalition found that land access was the #1 challenge that young farmers and ranchers faced. In Connecticut, farms have the 3rd highest real estate value in the country, and up to 70% of US farmland will change hands in the next 20 years. So this makes for an interesting opportunity for a program like FarmLink to help aid in that transition of land. 35% of farmers in New England are also 65 years and older, which means that in the next few years, there's going to be a lot of land that needs to change hands. And to do this efficiently, we have a program like FarmLink. So FarmLink is a free program that aids in the transition between generations of landowners with the goal of keeping farmland in production. There's the next generation of farmers who need to be stewards of tomorrow's land, but they need land to work. So a brief history of Connecticut FarmLink. Connecticut FarmLink was originally founded in 2006 by the Connecticut Department of Agriculture and started partnering with Connecticut Farmland Trust in 2018. The program started as basically a PDF that would have to be sent from farmers and landowners to the Department of Agriculture, and then would have to be sent back to landowners. So the system was really inefficient. So in 2018, they started partnering with CFT to make an interactive website like the one that now exists today. And this just makes the process a lot more efficient. And you can see this is what the website looks like today. So through the website, you're able to create a profile and search for land, depending on what kind of land it is you're looking for, whether that's a dairy operation or field crops. You're able to specify the size of the farm you're looking for, what infrastructure is on the farm, etc. And you're able to directly reach out to landowners or to farmers alike to match with farmers. Along with this, we also have an extensive resource list and access to free consultations on lease agreements, suitability of property for different types of agriculture. We partner with a lot of people across Connecticut to make sure we can give resources to new farmers and help them out however we can. So FarmLink is not just a program that happens in Connecticut, though. It is across the country now. There's FarmLink programs all across the country you can see in New Mexico, California, Washington, Oregon, but also in New England. And in New England specifically, we have the New England FarmLink Collaborative, which is a collaborative of organizers of the different FarmLink programs. So Connecticut FarmLink, Maine FarmLink, Vermont FarmLink, and also New England FarmLink, which is Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. And we work together to make sure that listings are cross-posted on different platforms so that, for example, if there is a farm that's located just into Connecticut, Massachusetts farmers are able to see that and aren't limited by state boundaries because New England is so small, obviously. We also work together to put on presentations for landowners and farmers and give them resources that they need. So a question that we often get is there even a next generation of farmers? Obviously, I went to school to study sustainable agriculture and am an aspiring farmer, and so are many of the students that I went to school with. But on FarmLink specifically in Connecticut, there are 300 new farmers that are looking for land currently, whereas there are only 6 farms currently listed on FarmLink. So there is a next generation of farmers, along with the survey that states that land access is the largest issue for young farmers. The second biggest issue for young farmers is student loan debt. So land access and student loan debt really go hand in hand for the next generation of young farmers because it makes it really hard for them to be able to afford payments. So that's where some of our resources that we share really help out these young farmers. Land access really is the #1 thing that makes new farmers quit. And so Connecticut FarmLink is working to try to help out with land access for new farmers. So this is Wraight Farm in Ellington. And you might recognize one of these little houses down here in the background of Daniel Greenwood's screen right now. But Wraight Farm, this is an aerial shot taken in 1963. John Wraight grew up on this farm and cut hay by hand with his dad and raised pheasants and different livestock across the land, and grew up in an agriculture family in Ellington, and witnessed the town of Ellington really having a tight, close-knit agricultural community. He felt really inspired by this and continued haying this land into his retirement, and decided in 2019 that it was important to him, because he did not have children, to protect this land, and protected this farmland property with Connecticut Farmland Trust. But on top of that, it was really important for him to pass this land on to the next generation of farmers. So John Wraight went to Connecticut FarmLink to make sure that this land was going to go to the next generation of farmers, which in this case is Dan Greenwood. So here is a picture of Dan and John Wraight and Gloria. And just last Thursday, Dan and his wife, Tina, closed on this property and are looking forward to remodeling the house and starting some new adventures across the property, getting new infrastructure and fencing put up and bringing livestock onto the property. So I will introduce Dan, and we have a few questions for him. And if anybody else has any questions, feel free to ask those as well. So Dan, do you want to introduce yourself real quick, and Tina?
Yes, hello, hi, I'm Dan Greenwood. Again, we recently just purchased the Wraight farm from John and Gloria, and this is my wife, Tina. We are first generation farmers, no farming background prior to us just growing up, wanting that situation for us, and more importantly for our kids. One of the questions that you were asking is why the second career in agricultural, and I recently retired from law enforcement. I'm working part-time currently, and my wife Tina is a registered nurse. But growing, as we got older, we realized that a lot of the food out there isn't necessarily the best in the supermarket or fast food restaurants, etc. And we wanted to be able to kind of know where our food came from. So that's what made us interested in looking into agricultural and local agricultural more. And then we decided to jump into it ourselves. So especially Tina has a lot of food allergies, just very sensitive to a lot of the preservatives and stuff in food. So that was really kind of our adventure in that situation.
So the house that you're moving out of currently, you guys have been starting your agricultural activities and adventures there with
Yes.
some small raised beds and also chickens.
Yes.
Is that how your son became interested in agriculture?
I would believe so. I mean, every property we've had, as small as it was, obviously student loan debt was huge for us. Looking back, we wouldn't have wasted so much money on traditional college, but we've learned that lesson and we can't take that back now. So we're finally out of our student loan debt, and our children will not accumulate so much debt, that's for sure. And we're trying to have them have just a well experience. So every property has had some sort of gardenings, and as we've grown and we've gotten a little bit larger property, our last property that we're still at, which will be closing soon, is 1.5 acres. Every usable spot of the yard has a garden. So we've outgrown that. They enjoy it. The kids in the neighborhood love having fresh fruit and vegetables. It's definitely a labor of love. You know, when the rest of the normal generation is sitting inside on their television or iPad or phone, we're out working until dark, which is what we enjoy. And our kids, because of our love of this, don't really know anything else, which is fabulous for them. And they're already loving this property and just being outside in the space. So, you know, we've really tried to instill that in the children. And so far they enjoy it.
Awesome. So Kathleen has a question in the chat. She said, are you connected with other beginner farmers, or are you getting in it on your own? Do you think other beginner farmers have similar motivations to yours, healthy and fresh food?
Good question. So we actually have a couple of friends who have done this same pathway. So for about 5 years now, we've been working at their property, learning the traits, because this is not a quick step. You know, we've been planning this for a few years, and we learned how to butcher, you know, chickens and turkeys, and how to feed the other animals. So we've been there helping them in exchange for them teaching us how to farm. So we do feel we have a good connection already. And they've already offered us their exchange, since we've paid them in labor, and they will pay us back in labor here. So we're excited for that exchange, finally our turn, and hoping to grow from there.
And on the healthy food side, I think that's where a lot of your younger, especially first generation farmers, I think that's one of the big pushes that I think we're seeing, and even our friends that are farmers as well. That was one of their big drives, is just knowing where your food came from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everyone sees a perfect steak in the supermarket, but it might not look the same as something coming off of a farm, but there is a huge taste difference, and taste is usually a healthy issue.
Yeah, so before I segue into a couple other questions in the chat, you're talking about some experience with local farmers that you've gotten, but also Dan talked a little bit about when we met a couple weeks ago, as you guys went on a family trip across the country and got to help out on some farms. Do you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I wish we were able to help out more. It was just off season for farming in that area, but we did go and visit Joe Salatin's farm, Polyface, in Virginia, and that's probably where a lot of our inspiration and style of farming is coming from. More of that regenerative farming, where we're going to be less barn, less infrastructure heavy, and yeah, it's going to be a little more labor intensive, but not the everyday dragging your cows into a barn to feed them. It's going to be, they're going to be fed out on pasture, and really regenerate this property to hopefully get some, you know, thicker soil and the healthiness of the land as much as the animals over time.
Awesome. So how did you guys originally hear about Connecticut FarmLink?
I think we just did a random internet search for land, and it had popped up. Honestly, we had no idea it was out there. And then when we did post a info, you put your name and contact info in, stating that we were interested. And then we had just recently looked again. We'd kind of given up in the fall. We had another property that we were interested in purchasing, and then somebody overbid us. Of course, that's the problem. And so we just rode out the winter, and then we just started looking, now that, you know, we don't have much going on in the winter time when it snows. And we did a little research, and then we reached out to John, and things went pretty quick after that.
Yeah, so Dan had mentioned a couple weeks ago too that you had seen John's farm a couple of years ago. So you guys have been looking for land for quite some time, or did it start just in the fall?
No, we've been definitely looking for several years. We got into our house now, which is a beautiful house in the neighborhood, you know, kind of the Hollywood type neighborhood. We grew out of it relatively quickly, especially once my son got involved in the FFA and realized he likes building the small engines. So when that was something that we were going past, one of our previous properties we always looked at was farmland, old houses, but at that time we weren't ready to take on that adventure. But looking in the standard real estate, whether it's realtor.com or just general real estate sites, it's very difficult to dial down what you're looking for. Most of them, it's like 15 acres and over. Well, that's a huge difference. And we were originally looking for like 100 acres. And most that was coming up were high-end horse properties, or, you know, just stuff that wasn't even in our budget range, or our need of budget, for the simple fact of it was you know, an overworked farm where it was, you know, in full operation, and I wasn't ready to take something like that on. So it definitely, the Connecticut FarmLink, I was able to look a lot more specific to what we were looking for. initially looking at the 100 acres and then dialing it down, looking for something that was either pastured with beef, et cetera, compared to a dairy farm, because there's a lot of dairy farms out there, but their infrastructure is different from cattle farm, in how, and that transition was a little difficult from other farmers, that got a dairy farm, saying, it's not as easy to switch that style over to our style.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that we hear really often with FarmLink, is that, traditional sites like Zillow, you aren't able to look at items like soil and infrastructure, whereas on FarmLink, because it's specific to agriculture, you're really able to narrow what kind of results you're trying to find, whether that's, livestock specific to raising beef or dairy. People have more of an understanding of what others are looking for, and specific to agriculture. So that's great. So Holly is wondering, what products are you planning to grow on the farm?
That's a great question. So this year, we actually have a small flock of chicken at our other property. They're coming with us, of course, and they are layer birds. So we will increase our layer birds for eggs to start. That will be probably by May. And then after that, we hope to do some broilers and do them totally on pasture. So we do have some infrastructure to make for those chicken tractors. And our next goal would be for some pigs for the summertime. And then eventually the cows will be next. So our plan is for some Angus, which is a Seminole and a Black Angus. They're a nice meat. That's another friend of ours who owns a beef farm. So we have contacts with him as far as getting those calves from him.
Awesome. So your farm is protected, so that's going to change a little bit how you look at growing your property in the future. Are you guys excited for that adventure, not having to worry about neighbors, encroaching on your land, or how are you guys thinking about that?
Two ways. One, financially, it definitely helped us once it was protected, and it helped out John and Gloria as well for that benefit. So that was awesome, and it's a great program for just that alone. More importantly, we weren't looking for neighbors anymore. I've done the neighbor thing for many years. Not that I don't like neighbors, but I don't want them next to me. And this is obviously allowing us to, even if we got into a situation like, oh, I'll sell off a few acres here and a few acres there, is preventing me from doing that. So it keeps us more dialed into what our goals are, as well as prevents us from having someone come and give us a number where you can't say no to, which I think a lot of farmers in the past, that's kind of happened, where there's certain numbers always going to make you not be able to say no. And the development rights used to allow that. It's slowing down, I think, a little in Connecticut, but it's still, they're looking for these flat lands because it's a lot easier to put neighborhoods in here than it is in a forest. So
yeah, of course. So Kathleen is wondering if you guys see a trend towards more direct to consumer marketing for farm products, and where are you guys going to be selling your farm products?
Okay, so we do see the trend for that, and that's, indirectly from our friends that do have a property up in Union, and they sell from their property to the public, and they're been very busy. Basically, they can't produce enough. So I do see that that's more of a trend now, especially that people realize they want to know where their food comes from, and what, not only where it came from, but what did you do with the land to make your animal that way. So I feel that that's a trend, especially with the younger population, not just my generation. So I think that that's going to increase. And then as far as our products, we'd like to be able to sell here at the property. In the interim, we're not really, we will be able to use, our friends' equipment if necessary. But so that is our ultimate goal, would be to sell here.
Awesome. Very cool. I know a large part of buying this property was for you guys to be able to start holistically growing food and exploring that opportunity, but also part of it was, to have opportunities for your kids your son and also your other two kids are interested in agriculture. Are they excited to move on to this new property? And
Oh, they are. They don't even, we're still in between the properties because we're gutting here. They don't even want to go home at night to go to bed. So they are already loving it.
And they don't have a bed here yet. So.
There's no beds here yet. So
I think definitely our youngest actually probably the least directed just because of his age on where he wants to go. But definitely, following in his brother's footsteps of wanting to do that kind of stuff. And he just likes the outdoors. Anytime we're up at our friend's farm in Union, no issues. And by the way, that's Taylor Springs Farm in
yes,
Union.
we should have recognized that.
They've actually transitioned to a farm truck style. So they're going to be offering their products through their farm truck as actual food. So they're going to do those type of events. And they've actually closed down their store, which will help us a little bit in the future, to not be competing with a good friend of ours. And then our daughter actually, and unbeknownst to us, just one day said a few years ago that she really wanted to be a vet. So this is going to kind of help her see if that's really where she wants to go or not. And she's probably going to be going into an ag program as well at Rockville potentially.
Very exciting. So Kathleen is asking, what types of trends am I seeing on FarmLink and what types of farms are being listed and what are farmers looking for? So in the last year, I think I've really seen an increase. Obviously, I've only been working for FarmLink for the last year, but what I've really noticed is there's a lot of small farms that are being listed, 2 to 10 acres of people looking to support small agriculture. I think that there's a lot of farmers that are also looking for small properties to get into intensive vegetable agriculture and community supported agriculture, direct marketed. So that's what I've noticed. The issue with that is with only 60 properties listed on FarmLink, it takes finding the right farmer looking for exactly the right property to make a match. Obviously, Dan and Tina are explaining that they've been looking for land for quite some time and, now are on this property, but it takes some time. So, but yeah, that's what I've been noticing on FarmLink. So we have another question from Kimball for you too. What are the types of supports you found most helpful or wish existed for newer farmers if you haven't found them yet?
Thanks, Kimball, for the question.
You got me thinking now.
So one of the things is, anytime in the farming community, and this is something that your everyday people don't see as much, is they're willing to help. They might be a little rash and come across as, closed and don't want to help, but farmers will always open their hand. It's just, you have to get past that. And I think Connecticut FarmLink realized that there's plenty of farmers out there that are looking to reach out to non-family or to people that aren't into the farming. It's just allowing that transition to, instead of walking up to a farmer, a lot of people are just not capable of doing that because they come across as a certain type of individual. They're just hardworking people that don't have time for chit chat. I think a lot of times it just doesn't come across that way.
What we found the most exciting so far, even being at this property, is so we were here day one, like 5 of our neighbors came up and introduced themselves and said, I have this equipment or I do offer this skill, just let me know when you need me. So you don't see that in your traditional neighborhoods. Nobody goes out in their yards, nobody does anything outside of their house. So for us, that was encouraging. If, for other people that are looking for land and resources and help, I think once they get into a property and the property is somewhat in a more rural area, you'll meet your neighbors. You'll be shocked at how much they're willing to help you.
And then just within your website, just under your resources, just stuff, being new to farming, not understanding, how to get my soil tested in multiple different places. And, I know UConn does it, but that might not always work, or looking into grants if we choose to go down that road, or just different things. There's a lot of useful resources within that tab that you guys have that I wouldn't even have thought of, especially coming into it new.
Awesome. I'm glad those were helpful. Yeah, I know John talked a lot about the farming community in Ellington. It's great to hear that the neighbors are still really close-knit and willing to help out. You know, John is really excited to be passing down the property to you guys. I could tell he was really excited to talk to your son too about different lawnmowers and stuff that he could fix up. And it's really exciting that you know, you guys found each other through FarmLink, but also that he's leaving the farm with someone that he's really excited to leave it to. So thank you guys so much. Does anybody else have any other questions? Feel free to leave them in the chat. If not, I think that will almost wrap it up today. Do you guys have any social medias for your farm that we can?
We're starting that. Yeah, like I said, we've got a lot kind of going all at once, so we've been trying to get that going. We do have a.
So I have currently Facebook and Instagram are both under Greenwood Holistic Farm.
Awesome.
So they're up and running. Actually, you'll start to follow our
progress in the house.
Our renovation of the house currently right now, but as time goes, we're going to kind of start getting out to the fields and stuff, and then at some point, obviously, introduce into the animals as that time goes. So it was kind of interesting because as we start talking to even friends of ours that are definitely not farmers or definitely not into that, like people are like very, I wouldn't say jealous, but like, you know, just happy that we're able to take that step, coming from a very nice house, stepping down on our house size and going for the land. I was surprised on how many people that land actually is more important to them. They're just not willing to take that step.
Correct.
So that was interesting to see.
Yep.
Awesome. Are you guys looking at any grants or any other financial assistance for some of these projects that you have upcoming?
We definitely need to, for sure. Obviously, with the repairs of the house, we will be over budget more than we expected, which is, you know,
farm life.
So it will set us back on doing more of the farmland because of that financial burden. So we definitely are in need of or trying to look for grants if possible.
Awesome. I definitely can help connect you guys to some grant opportunities. So I'll be in touch about that. But also Kathleen has a wealth of knowledge about different grant opportunities going on for beginning farmers. So, yeah, so what's next for FarmLink? I can talk about that a little bit. Right now with the New England FarmLink Collaborative, we have a workshop webinar series coming up just next week on Wednesday, where we're going to be talking about how landowners can list sites on New England FarmLink and Connecticut FarmLink to make sure that it is the most digestible for farmers and they can get the most matches. We're going to be continuing to increase our outreach so that we can get more farms listed on FarmLink for farmers. We also are going to be looking at some of the Department of Agriculture's Farmland Access Working Group suggestions on how to increase land access for farmers and trying to implement those into our program. And also, if you don't follow Connecticut FarmLink on social media, we've been posting farm profiles and resources, grant opportunities on our social medias, and those are all under Connecticut FarmLink or CT Farmland. If anybody else has any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. If not, this has been great. Dan and Tina, thank you guys so much for joining us. I cannot wait to do stewardship visits next year and hopefully in the future to watch your farm grow and become
thank you.
and turn from, you know, John's hay farm to excellent farm with lots of livestock.
I just want to note that if anybody that's on the webcast today or is knowledgeable that has anybody interested in wanting to do a CSA here to lease the property, we are totally willing to offer that. We even have water on site too. So
excellent.
To try to have the full, we just won't have enough manpower hours to be able to do the veggies and the animals to start. So,
guys, we will have to get a FarmLink listing going to make sure that local farmers in Ellington know about that. That's awesome. That's very exciting.
That was one thing I did want to mention is I did see in your Connecticut FarmLink that it's not just for purchasing farms or selling farms, that it's also looking for help, whether or partnerships and all different options. So we definitely like that. I saw a lot of it when we were looking for farms. So
awesome. Very great. Yeah, that's exciting. What a great opportunity too. All right. Thank you everyone for joining. This has been great. Feel free to reach out to me at farmlink@ctfarmland.org if you have any questions. And everyone have a great day.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye guys.
Take care.
Bye.